Hey, it's Jeff, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to show you how to propagate the ever popular ZZ plant. I have two varieties currently in my collection. This is the regular green one. I've had this one for a couple of years now, and it's quite large. I can't fit the whole thing in frame. And then I also have the Black Raven ZZ. So I'm going to show you a couple different methods of how to propagate this plant. I also have a couple currently in water with some pretty interesting results. I find this plant extremely interesting in how it grows. So yeah, I'm going to show you a few different things on these plants that I've learned over the last little while. I also want to give a quick shout out to Anna's Violet's YouTube channel. Go check her out. She recently did a care video on the ZZ plant. So if you want to go check out another interesting plant YouTube channel, go check her out. Otherwise, let's get started. Okay, so here's the behemoth. It's grown quite large. I think it's in a 12-inch pot right now. I did make a video, I think about 6 months ago, about this plant being extremely root bound. So if you want to go check that out, it's actually a pretty interesting video. I can leave it up here. Like I said, I have previously propagated this with some cuttings currently in water. This is where I made the cut on one of the stems. So that's what you want to do, is take some sterile pruning shears and just cut off one stem. And like I said, you can do it a couple different ways, which I'm going to show right here. Here is the stem portion. You can literally just cut it off and stick it in some water. Actually, I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to take one cutting and I'm going to make some more plants. So I'm looking for a stem that, like this one, is really long and leggy. It's not really contributing much to the plant in like appearance wise. So I'm going to snip this one off. So I do it just above the soil line, just something like that. Take this out. So far with my experience with this plant, you can see once you make the cut, there is no new growth that comes from this stem. So how this plant reproduces is by what's called rhizomes. They're basically little potato-like structures, and I'll show you an example here in a second. But that's how this plant reproduces, or I guess divides, is it sends out some rhizomes horizontally in the soil, and then it pushes out some new stems. These rhizomes are good at, I guess, supplying extra nutrients and I guess water, as these are quite drought-tolerant plants. You don't have to water very often because of those rhizomes. They store water and nutrients. One of the things I find interesting about this plant is its super random growth pattern. Right now it's the end of November and you think these plants should be slowing down. I didn't get any new growth in the spring and summer with this plant, but look, I'm getting 2 new shoots, just super random, one back here as well. So that's how they start. It'll push out this stem from a rhizome down in the soil, and it'll just continue into a new vine like this. And the nice thing about these Raven ZZs is the new growth actually comes out bright green, and then it changes to a darker color if you're unfamiliar with this plant. But that is what the new growth looks like. It's just like a couple little spikes popping up through the soil. Okay, now to chop this plant up. Now, there is, like I said, a couple different methods. You can just take this stem, put it in soil, and it eventually will produce a rhizome and roots at the end of the cutting here. And you can start an entirely new plant all by itself. But if you want to take one cutting like this or one stem like this and make it into multiple separate cuttings, that way you can put it all in one pot and you can make a nice fuller pot of a ZZ plant from these cuttings. Is you can actually take the either single leaf cuttings, or you can take single or I guess stem cuttings. You can cut it up. So I'm going to cut this actually right here just to show you. You could put this in water, but to make single stem cuttings, you want a section of the stem like this, and then I cut just above these 2 leaves, just like that. So you can place this in water. It will get roots and develop a rhizome at the end, and that rhizome will then eventually push out new growth so that you can get an entirely new plant from this little cut section right here. It will not, as far as I know, it will not regrow from this cut portion, so just keep that in mind. And I'm just going to go kind of up the vine or up the stem and just make these single leaf cuttings like that, or stem cuttings, sorry. And I'm going to take the little internodes are getting quite squished there. So I'm actually going to take single leaf cuttings from these guys. So I got 3 separate smaller stem cuttings. I got a large one, and now I'm going to take single leaf cuttings. So now for these single leaves, I like to go as close to the stem as possible and even get a little portion of the stem if you can, just cut right on there so that the leaf still has a small section of the stem or the petiole. That's where the new roots are going to grow from. Again, just make sure you get that little portion of the petiole, the leaf stem, just like that. I've had these propagations in water for a couple months now, so just be prepared for it to take a long time. I guess the one thing that I've had to learn since owning plants is I have to have patience. Okay, here is the stem cutting that I cut off probably about a month or even a little bit more, and there is no roots on this stem yet. Maybe some roots just starting to pop out, but I'm gonna put that back in water. That's actually quite surprising. I thought this would be one of the first ones to root, but it has not produced anything yet. So the one that I just cut right now, I'm gonna stick it in water as well. You can team up with this one and eventually, hopefully get some roots. Okay, so here's all the cuttings that I just took right now. This is what they look like when they first cut. I would let them callus over for a day and then stick them in water. Here is a couple examples of some stem cuttings, and you can see this little kind of round bulb thing. That is the rhizome developing. These ones don't have much roots. I'm going to show this one right here. This is getting a nice little root, but that's how they develop. They start to get this little kind of bulbous end, and then they start pushing out some roots. Okay, so these are the stem cuttings. Now I'm going to take out some of these leaf cuttings. I did have one leaf die, but look at these rhizomes. Look at the roots. This is super interesting. I got 2 green and 2 ZZ ones. And these roots are crazy. They are so interesting. They look like, I don't know, little aliens. I find it so fascinating how these grow. So when you put these in soil, it will grow, I don't know if it grows like another rhizome or if it'll grow a stem from the existing rhizome. So I'm gonna pot all of these up in a pot today. It probably should have larger roots on these stem cutting ones, but I'm just gonna throw it in and see what happens. I'm gonna place them all together. So I'm gonna have some Raven and I'm gonna have just some regular green in one pot. This is the Raven one. The leaf has already kind of rotted off, so I'm just gonna toss that aside. Just a neat little rhizome. These are often called tubers or bulbs, but that's actually incorrect. These are rhizomes. Okay, so I'm just gonna place these back in water. I might need a little bit of a shallower vessel, but that's okay. I'm just gonna stick them all in for now. I'll figure out something later. I don't need a super large container, but just so that I guess the ends of the cuttings are underwater. That's where the roots are gonna grow. I'm just gonna stuff these 2 little leaves in there as well. I'll fix it up later. Okay, so I do have a small little terracotta pot, and I'm using succulent cactus soil for this, as I don't want the soil to hold on to too much moisture. I think these tubers, like if you look at your ZZ plant, I'll see if I can find an example here in a second, but these tubers are often fairly close to the top of the soil, so I'm not gonna be planting them deep. I'll just keep them a little bit closer to the top. And then these leaves, they did exceptionally well. These roots are super nice. I probably should have done this the other way, the reverse. Should have planted the leaves first. I'm just gonna move some of the middle soil out. Okay, abort. Just gonna plant all these leaves here first, just slightly under the soil. I'm gonna leave the leaves intact the way they are. I'll let them fall off naturally. I'm gonna add a little bit more soil around the sides if I need to. I'm gonna put these Raven ZZ over here, cover it up. This little rhizome here, I'm gonna put the roots facing downwards. I'm gonna place it right here. Just tuck it in just slightly below the soil. And if you follow my channel for any length of time, I've done previous water propagations in the past. And like I've mentioned before, if you take a plant from a water, if you take a water propagated plant and you put it in soil, you want to make sure that the soil stays relatively wet or damp for about the first 2 weeks, and then slowly cut back on watering. These water roots are pretty delicate right now and you don't want them to dry out. So I'm going to give this a good thorough soaking right now. That way these water roots don't dry up and die on me. And hopefully I get some new stems here. I'm guessing or hoping in the next couple months I'll start to see some new shoots popping out from these rhizomes. So it does take a long time. I would expect from the cutting to a new plant or seeing new roots would probably be that 3 or 4 months. So just be patient, and hopefully you can start a new plant from single leaf cuttings and stem cuttings. Just gonna add a little bit more soil to the top just so these single leaves are covered sufficiently and that they stay upright. Okay, so now I'm gonna give it some water, and like I said, just give it a good soaking. I have my water can right here. That was handy. Usually I have to go searching for this stuff, but just gonna water it till it comes out the bottom of the drain hole. I'm gonna water this probably every couple days, just making sure, again, not to let this dry out. Let that soak through. And that's why I'm using a cactus and succulent mix, because it's formulated for well-draining soil. The content in it is, like, you can see lots of perlite, there's sand, as well as some other ingredients. Okay, so right here on the Raven ZZ, you can see this is a rhizome. This looks like a little potato sitting just slightly beneath the soil there. So that's what they look like. Actually, I'm gonna see if I can scrape this away, see if we can see the new growth, where it's coming from. I don't want to disturb it too much, but it looks like it's maybe from another rhizome in the soil. So I'm just going to cover that back up. So I think that's going to be pretty much it for this ZZ plant video. Whoops, it's dripping. If you have any comments or questions, please leave it down below in the comment section. I do read all the comments and I try to respond to all of them in a timely fashion. So yeah, if I don't get to them right away, I will try and do my best. But thanks for watching my videos, everyone. I really do appreciate the support. Take care. Bye.